Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Cerebral Cricketer podcast. Today we're very, very special guests on the show. So Fergus O'Neill is one of Australian cricket's rising stars, from Premier Cricket standout to Sheffield Shield Player of the Season. The Victorian quick has made his mark with relentless accuracy and smart seam bowling. So welcome to the show, Fergus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I know you have a very interesting sort of trajectory when it comes to your cricket. So I want to get an idea of what your childhood was like when it comes to cricket. So was there any one that you looked up to as a bowler growing up?
I don't know. I get asked this question a lot. I don't really feel like there was anyone in particular. I do remember watching some early BBL, watching the Dwayne Bravo go about his work with the gold chains and whatnot, and I thought I wouldn't mind being somewhat like that. Not quite as good as Dwayne Bravo, but going the right way, hopefully.
And when it comes to cricket, did you always just play cricket, or there's other sports that you played alongside cricket?
I played a bit of golf growing up and lots of footy. I always loved cricket. Always, play backyard cricket with my father, with my mates. But I suppose sports always been a pretty big part of my life, and cricket as well.
I noticed like your earlier scorecards, like you obviously bat as well in domestics and scored runs there, but you also batted quite a bit as a youngster. So did you do both as equally, or did you prefer one over the other?
I probably batted a bit more as a junior, and I think I kind of fell into bowling a little bit. The way the wickets have been, when I was coming through, has probably been more conducive to my bowling. So I probably fell into bowling a bit more. But growing up, I batted probably predominantly higher up in the order and bowled more first change, and that's kind of that's just found a happy medium there. It's probably the bowling's taken over, and my batting could do with a little bit of a touch up.
And do you feel that because you mentioned you played a bit of golf, has that helped your batting anyway when it comes to technique?
Well, I think now where they speak about a lot of the power hitting stuff, I was just watching Tim David bat now in the T20 that's going on at the moment, and a lot of his swings are like a golf swing half the time. So I think it definitely holds a little bit of weight and understanding, how they can, smack the golf ball and how you can apply that to a cricket standpoint. So a little bit, but probably not an awful lot.
And so, did you have any coach that you that taught you like the fundamentals of the game from a young age?
I think I did quite a bit of work with my dad. Like my dad played a bit of cricket, and he always had pretty strong opinions about what to do, and didn't let me get off lightly. So probably him. Then probably at Melbourne Cricket Club, Cameron White had a bit to do with Cameron White, and he definitely moulded me a little bit into the player I am.
So, what advice or what sort of assistance do you get from Cameron White? Just out of curiosity, when it comes to your game from a young age.
Well, I think he was very good at the tactical side of the game. So he's always one step ahead with your fields, with what's going to happen, the sequence of your overs, the sequence of what the bowler's trying to bowl to you, so on and so forth. So I think he was massive in that regard. And yeah, he played that much cricket. He just knew what was going to happen before it's happened. There's no position that of a game that he's been in there's no position in a game that I've been in that he hasn't been in. So he was a very good help, um, to kind of almost pass on that knowledge, I suppose, is what I'm looking for.
And circling back to your dad as well, like you seem like pretty, just talking to you now, a very charismatic guy, kind of speak your mind. You said your dad had strong opinions. Did you naturally clash? Like, did you just take on his opinions? What was that kind of relationship like?
No, definitely lots of clashing. He's quite firm on me, quite hard on me. I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. I think it's held weight. I never probably got told I was going as good as I was, and every little bad thing kind of got pointed out, and I think I'm fortunate for it in that regard. Charismatic's a good word. I think if anyone is wants to be good at sport, you got to be charismatic, and I faced not an awful lot of challenges to date. I've been lucky, but when I have had some adversity, I don't feel like it's the end of the world.
If your dad like pointing out flaws, did it kind of get to you anyway, or it sort of make you work hard to prove him wrong? Like what was that situation like? Because I know, like me, like I'm a pretty sensitive guy. I reckon as a kid I was pretty sensitive. So if my parents were like pointing out the flaws, I'd have a cry or whatever. You know what I mean? So no, kids are
Yeah.
like that. So like, what was that like with you?
Yeah, I think there was an element of you want to do him proud, prove him wrong, say, yeah, you know what I mean? Oh, I can do this, I can do that. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, there was a lot of clashing and there was probably a lot of tears when I was young, but yeah, definitely. I think you're trying to prove him wrong and try and almost say like I can do it, la da da da. Da.
And in regards to like the technical aspect of bowling in this context, what did you focus on when it came to bowling at a young age? Like you mentioned, your dad coaching you. Was it like your run up, or was it your sort of wrist position? Like what sort of aspects of your bowling were you, emphasized to keep working on as a youngster?
I think in all sports that I played, I was always quite skillful. I probably did the skillful aspects well. I probably lacked on a few of the fundamentals and the one percenters, but I always did the skillful stuff well. So I think when I bowled, it was a taped up tennis ball in the backyard where you put my sister's hair ties or my mum's hair ties to kind of create a seam, and it was always how you can try and you know swing the ball or nip the ball, and even with batting, how you can manipulate the ball to a certain area. So I think the skill stuff is probably what I focused on as opposed to a technique stuff. I think I've got a pretty simple action that I probably just had from day dot. So I didn't really focus an awful lot on that, but I did focus a lot on the skillful stuff.
And was because you're known for your sort of line and length, was that drilled into you as a youngster to hit a certain length or to hit the top of off anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. Even down the track when I got into playing for Victoria, Scott Boland always says the top of off's never moved. It's the same in India. It's the same in Pakistan. It's the same in England. It's the same in Australia. So the top of off's always going to be a good ball, and I think that was definitely drilled into me from a young age.
And so I might kind of discuss your early of like, for example, in season 2015-2016, you played under 15 national championships. And what's really cool is that you actually opened the batting against New South Wales in one of the games. And you also played with the likes of Mackenzie Harvey, and I think against the likes of like Oliver Davies as well. So what was that experience like? What's your recollection of that carnival?
Yeah, I remember being 15. Probably the coach was Lee Holmes, who was the coach at Maribyrnong College, where I went, and he definitely had a soft spot for me. I was probably in that team, one of the last picked, and if Lee wasn't the coach, it mightn't have fallen my way. But he put faith in me, and yeah, I remember that experience again. I feel like I probably wasn't always the best player, but I could be skillful and I could, you know, bat one or bat eight and open the bowling or bowl towards the end. And yeah, I do remember playing against Oliver Davies back then. He smacked it back then. He still smacks it now, and it is interesting to see going through the carnival stuff. The best player I played against in the under 12s doesn't even play cricket anymore, I don't think. And then people come on the scene on under 19s and do really well. I didn't play under 17s representative stuff. So it is interesting to see how that works and how it's different for every person.
It's interesting you said like you didn't play the under 19s and the 17s stuff as well. Like you played the under 15 carnival and then you sort of made headways in first grade and then got picked in the second 11 and then for Victoria. What do you think allowed you to be able to do that? Was it like specific training? Was it working hard? Was it like mental shift in order to kind of progress to, that far? Still young, obviously, but you a lot of household names. You hear them from under 17, under 19 carnivals, but you weren't necessarily in that trajectory.
Yeah, I think I probably used that to my advantage. I dropped out of school at 16 and I worked. I was a landscaper. I did a bit of chippy stuff as well, but yeah, I don't know. I probably had a bit of chip on my shoulder in that regard that I wasn't going to be the prodigy player all the way through, and I just I don't know. I probably got my fundamentals a little bit better, and the one percenters, I did a bit better. I got fit playing some good footy, and then that just kind of rolled in. I felt like a decent skill set, and then throw in a bit more effort, I suppose, and yeah, I hit the nail on the head. But the one thing I think I've had from day dot is just belief. Like if I've never met you, but if you said I'll play you in table tennis, I'll say I'll beat you. If you said I'll play you in pool, I'll say I'll beat you. Even you might be a master pool player or a master table tennis player, but I just always feel like I back myself and try and, you know what I mean, try and find a way.
I mean, it's interesting you say that because, like, I sense humility as you're saying that, which is like contradictory, right? But then, you know what I mean. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like do you have to battle with your ego sometimes in order to have that self belief, or you don't feel like that's an issue necessarily?
No, it's interesting. I think ego is one of those ones where um, it's tough because ego can get in the way, and there is definitely times where egos cost me, and you've got to shelve your ego. But I definitely think that without ego, you can't be the best player. In such a cutthroat industry, if you don't believe in yourself or you don't think that you're any good, there's no one else that's going to think you're any good. If most people are probably hoping you don't go good, you know what I mean? It's your career versus them. So, um, yeah, I think it's very interesting. I try and say more love, less ego is a quote I got from a mate of mine, Tawanda Muyeye. He told me that. He's got that tattooed on his arm. He said it was a silly tattoo he had when he was 18, but that's a quote that's kind of stuck with me. But I definitely think, and you probably ask my mates, they think I've got a big ego in the right areas, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just a balancing act, and as long as you're self-aware about it, that's what matters as well. And as I said, like speaking to you, I feel humility from you as you're saying that, which is really interesting. But I'm just like also curious as well because I was actually reading something not too long ago about like the power of thoughts. So like having that internal drive or that natural sort of optimism within someone will obviously do help them to do better, even though they may not necessarily have. Not saying you in this situation, but in general, like people talk about building that self belief from within first, and that'll eventually translate into some outside kind of realm, so to speak. So it always is a mental game, or that mental side is definitely crucial when it comes to building the optimism, having that self belief. And so, what advice would you give them to build that? Because it's not necessarily easy for someone to just come by and have self belief. Do you feel that you've sort of had to nurture that growing up, or did you feel like you've naturally just had it, being since you were born?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's one of those God given, isn't it? I don't know. It is hard to kind of fake it, and for me, it's probably been something that I've always had. But I think what you can do um, is have, you don't necessarily need hard, cold evidence to believe that you can go well. I think a lot of people you find in most careers, they start off and they don't go as well as they wanted to, and then all of a sudden they get a 50 or they get 100 or they get a fifer, and then it's like it all clicks for them and it all happens really fast because they needed that kind of evidence to know that they're good enough. I think it is contradictory me saying this because I did play decent early doors, but I always felt like I would find a way, and I would be good enough.
And you're obviously, within the domestic scene, and also in first grade, you played under in 2019, 2020, played under Cameron White, which we talked about. Seeing these players and being amongst them, because you're still, relatively young, especially watching experienced players. Have you all found that the common theme that they have is that they just all have tremendous self belief?
Yeah, common theme for a lot of players, but I think it varies for heaps of people. Like some people you play with are very methodical and they know their game inside out and they swim between the flags. Some people have unbelievable self belief. I remember playing with Quinton de Kock for the big bash, and he would walk out to the middle of the ground and look at the boundaries and go, oh, this ground's not big enough for me, and just like saying stuff like that, which I'm sure had a bit of tongue in cheek in it, but also it was like, wow, this guy knows he's a player. He knows that if he has a day, he can't be stopped. And I think that's a common theme in a lot of the good players. And for some people, it's a quiet confidence. For some people, they project it. But I personally feel that all of the players that I've played with that are good know that they're good. Like, Scott Boland's a good example that I can use. I would say he's got the utmost confidence and self-belief in his game, but he doesn't project that. I feel like it's just a silent, quiet confidence in his internal, that when he gets to the top of the mark, he knows, doesn't matter who it is, I can nick this bloke off. I can succeed here. But he doesn't roll around and make that known, or is outspoken about it, whereas other people definitely do.
Speaking about Scott Boland, you also played alongside, I'm pretty sure, like Peter Siddle, for example. So these kind of premier Australian bowlers. What sort of other learnings have you taken from playing alongside or having these tremendous bowlers as teammates?
Yeah, they've been great to be with. Probably owe a lot to Sids and Pato and Bazza and a few lads. I've timed it well at the Vics. Yeah, I just think you just pick up lots of stuff. They just got a lot of experience. As I said with Whitey, there's no scenario of a game that I'm going to encounter that they haven't encountered before. So they just know all the ins and outs. And yeah, I'm trying to think of from a mental side, some of the stuff they've given me. I think they just get to the top of the mark. They try and execute, and they can just deal with the circumstances that they kind of aren't really worried about the outcome. They judge it on what they were trying to execute. I know Kane Richardson spoke to me about that for BBL. He feels like you can come in and bowl the perfect wide Yorker, and they get a feather on and it goes down and beats third man for four, and it looks bad. Or you can bowl the ball right in the slot and he shanks it and you get caught in the boundary and it looks like you're going well, but it's different. It's bigger than that, and the best players probably judge themselves on the execution as opposed to the outcome.
And so, tracking back to season 2019-2020, there was a game, you had a very notable milestone. You had, bowled a hat trick against Monash, and he finished with figures of 6 for 25 against the likes of Jake Fraser McGurk. So, tell us or walk us through that little game, not that little game, but walk us through that game and, how you managed to get a hat trick and what you did right that day.
Yeah, we were playing at Central Reserve against Monash, as you said. The pitch there is not always batter friendly. It was still wet, I think, when we rocked up in the morning. I had Chris Tremaine bowling at the other end with me. That's another good player that I was lucky enough to be around from a young age. And yeah, I think we bowled a couple overs each, didn't really get a wicket. Maybe he might have got the first wicket, and then it all happened fast. I had a wicket overnight, or from the week before, and then yeah, I just did what I do, hit a spot, and the pitch did the rest for me that day. Thank God. But yeah, I think, as you said, I already had the belief that I could do well at first grade level, but I think that probably when you have a breakout game like that, then it's like, okay, well, I've done this now. I can go on to bigger and better things, or I can really have a good season for Melbourne. And yeah, I think I did that.
And what was the experience like progressing from like third grade, second grade? Did you find it like you're going through hurdles when it comes to having to feel like you had to upskill in a certain way in order to do well, or did you just have that consistent self belief that kind of drove you, through those grades in order to get to first grade and then have that breakout performance?
Um, yeah, I think it all tried to stay pretty similar. I felt like I was always going to bowl the way that I wanted to bowl, and bowl the way I knew how to bowl. And if that was good enough at third grade level, I hope it was good enough at second grade level. And if it was good enough at second grade level, first grade, and so on and so forth. I think I'd never tried to be something that I wasn't. I've always tried to go about the game how I go about the game, and back that it's going to be good enough. And obviously along the way you get better and you upskill, but I think you upskill through experience and through learning. So I'm definitely a different player now than I was when I first played first grade cricket or first played for Victoria, but I've always kind of had the same fundamentals and the same way of going about it, I suppose.
And in season 2021 to 2022, so across two Premier Cricket seasons, you'd taken 57 wickets at an average of 18.14 as a teenager, and that fueled your rise to the Victorian state squad. So that's phenomenal numbers. What do you think was? I know we talked about your self belief and stuff. Well, what aspects of your game do you feel like worked on in order to help you do so in those seasons?
I think I just tried to stay consistent. I just kept trying to ask the right questions, and yeah, it fell my way. I think I played in a strong side, which helped. We had pressure coming from both ends, and yeah, to be honest, I don't really know. Like I felt like I just kept putting the ball in the right area and just kept doing the right things and kept showing up, and it went my way. It's kind of been the story for me. I've had it go my way for a while, and I know that it's not always going to be the case. There's going to be times, and there has been times where it hasn't gone my way, but I just keep backing that. I'll be good enough when I get the conditions in my favour, and I'll cash in for when it isn't going my way.
You mentioned you try to stay consistent. Is that in regards to execution of your processes, for example? Like, what walk us through like your sort of process, like from the top of your mark, what you're trying to execute. Is it shifting necessarily according to the game situation, or are you just trying to keep it as simple as possible in order to help you execute better?
I think I'm trying to stay consistent in all aspects. Not ride the wave, not get 5 wickets and then go out and party like I'm a legend, or get smashed and then sit in my hotel room and be sad, or in my home and be sad. I was trying to stay consistent in all aspects of life, and then in the games, I think, as you said, the game scenario dictates a few things and whatnot. But again, just trying to stay consistent and keep putting the ball in the right spot and keep asking the batters questions.
And as well, do you have any triggers or mental cues that help you switch on or lock into a rhythm during a spell?
Um, I write a few things on my shoe. Just hit the top of off. I've got a few cues on my shoe that I look at probably before I bowl the ball. Um, One of them's TG, which has a few meanings, but one of the meanings is today's game. Like what happened last week doesn't matter. What happened, you know, yesterday doesn't matter. It's today's game. It's what's going on today. Previous results, whether it's gone good or bad against players or teams, it doesn't hold any weight in today's game. So maybe those few cues just to stay present and to stay locked in. But yeah, I don't really know. I just try and keep it pretty simple, I think.
And like recently as well, you played in England, you played in different conditions, obviously all around Australia, the conditions can vary. At times, even with the ball, the ball might not do as much. Sometimes it will do a lot. And that would require adjustments, right? So how do you work through those adjustments? Like sometimes it can be swinging a lot. And obviously as a bowler, you want to control it in a way where it would be difficult for the batsman to play you. But then sometimes, there's pitches where it can be very placid. Not much is happening. Walk us through the sort of adjustments you have to make in those situations, and what you try to execute on a flat deck versus something that is swinging and nipping around a bit more.
Yeah, I think maybe your expectations are the first things that becomes adjusted. I don't necessarily think how I bowl adjusts. Obviously, you might drag your length back if it's flat. You might search a bit more if it's going around corners. But as a general rule, if it's a flat wicket, well, maybe going at two and over and holding the board and having 8 blokes in front of the bat is the best way to go about it. And yeah, if you can go at two and over and maybe pick up a court cover or something, you're happy. Or when it is going around corners, it's going to look different again. But I think you just adjust on the fly and yeah, figure out what the expectations are, when I can really put the foot down because the conditions are in my favour, or when I have to hold because it's a flat wicket and they're on top of the game.
And as well, circling back to your season, when it comes to your debut, so when you made your debut in List Day in the Marsh One Day Cup, it was in March 8, 2022. What was your experience and emotions like, especially with your journey, considering the fact that, you played Carnival, worked hard, you did well in first grade, and then now you're making your debut. Tell us what that period was like for you as a cricketer, and the emotions and at the time before you were about to make your debut. And when you got the phone call, what was that experience like?
The phone call. I remember getting the phone call walking to training from Chris Rogers. I was obviously excited, a little bit nervous. First time you do anything is obviously going to be quite daunting. But again, back to circle back to my dad and being tough on me. He said, no one remembers and no one cares. About your debut as such, and you could just have played one game. You know what I mean? Like, my parents didn't make too big of a deal about it. I know, it's a big thing in the AFL. You call your parents, "Oh, I'm debuting this week. La da da. How good's this?" And then 3 years later, the bloke gets delisted. You know what I mean? So I was pretty big on, this is cool. This is something I'll remember, and it's a good stepping stone. It's a step in the right direction. But you don't want to be known as a 1 or 2 game player. I was always had the ideology that this just needs to be the start. This is a foot in the right direction, but how you play over the course of your career is going to hold a lot more weight than how you play in your debut or in one game, if that makes sense. I never really got too caught up about debuting. I want to look back in 10 years time from now, or 15 years time, however that looks, and be satisfied with what I've done, not get too caught up about the fact that I've debuted.
And being in the team and in the squad and playing your game, first game, did you feel any pressure to perform? Because obviously we know how good Victoria is and how difficult it can be to break into the Victorian squad and play for Victoria. And so, did you feel those kind of nerves or pressure to perform in order to keep your spot in the team initially when you first started playing for Victoria?
Um, Probably not, to be honest. I think I had good people around me to let me know that no one's expecting you to come in on debut and get 5 for and dominate. Your role when you first come in is going to be to whether it's a red ball game or a white ball game, you're probably going to bowl the easier overs in a white ball game and give Scotty a rest and bowl through the middle with 4 out. And in a red ball game, you're going to again probably you're not expected to take 5 wickets. You've got to probably earn the right to do that. And I feel like that's a transition that every player goes through, where you come in the team and you're playing second string, and then maybe you start to go well, and then you go from participating to contributing, and then you go from contributing to being an important player and a match winner. And yeah, I think I always had an idea that when I first come in, I don't think they're expecting me to set the world on fire. I've just got to do my job for the team and do that as well as I could. And then from there, hopefully it progresses into you contributing and winning matches for your side.
In season 2022 and 2023, you made your first class debut alongside Scott Boland, and you took 4 wickets in your first match, and 2 of those dismissals were Australia's Alex Carey and Travis Head. So walk us through that period when it came to approaching that game. Like, did you have a strategy when it came to bowling to such world class batsmen, and how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, look, again, to be honest, whoever was at the other end, I was just trying to bowl what I've always bowled. And, obviously when you bowl into super players, they're going to have a lot more answers to your questions. But I wasn't really too fussed. I was just trying to play. And, yeah, again, my expectations probably weren't super high when you first come in. I was just looking to contribute and play my role. And, yeah, I was pretty lucky. I think Hetty was dealing to me early doors, and then I bowled a wide half volley to get him out, which was lucky. Sharp catch by Pete Hanscom. I'll remember that, my first wicket. And then um, yeah, I think I was just trying to play my role and give Scotty a chop out, give Sutho a chop out, and then it's funny how it progresses. And now you're expected to take wickets every game, and so on and so forth, as I spoke about. But when I first come in, and the coaches were very good in this regard, they weren't expecting the world from me. They were expecting me to just be honest and just contribute where I could, and play second or third string.
From what you're talking about, it definitely seems like Cricket Victoria, sorry, in this situation, have been, as an institution, have been superb, handling you and making you feel, comfortable and transitioning you into the first team. So, can you talk us a bit more about that, like how they've assisted you? I know, like, I'm not sure if like you have to work with sports psychologists, anything of that, like those facilities that they allow you to get a hold of in order to help with your game as well.
Yeah, well, we hadn't had a sports psychologist for my time in Victoria until the last couple of years. We've been doing a fair bit of work with him over this pre-season, but I think I kind of always gravitated to the older players just through being, you know, coming through in the trades. My boss was older than me or was around older people, so when I got into the Victorian system, I've probably spent quite a bit of time with the older lads, and got an understanding of how the game works, and what they were expecting of me. And yeah, I think my expectations evidently were probably pretty good initially. I wasn't trying to set the world alight. I was just trying to be honest and contribute where I could. I think I've referenced it 5 minutes ago, but to reference it again, when you first come in, I think you're just looking to almost participate and see how you go, because you're a blank canvas, and then from participation it stems into contributing, and then from contributing you go to match winning.
And being part of Cricket Victoria and its setup, were there any big changes when it came to, it could be preparation or gym work when it comes to being a bowler? Because I want to get also an idea of like, obviously rest days are really important for bowlers, with their loads. So that's a really big thing, especially in international cricket as well. So can you walk us through how you approach, making the most out of your bowling through, gym work, and what sort of gym work you do in the lead up to games, or like, what sort of routines or trainings you do specifically in order to make sure that you're at your peak when it comes to bowling.
Yeah, I think we got a good phys prep kind of group or establishment at Cricket Victoria. They're all over that stuff. They've got us all on our individual programs, and how that looks. And to be honest, I just check my AMS app and do as I'm told. So I definitely probably got a bit better with that over the years. I wasn't the best at that, first and foremost. I probably bowled lots, and didn't quite get my prehab and those kind of things right. And I still don't do that to the best of my ability at times. But yeah, I think it varies, week to week, and the pre-season's obviously a heavier load. But you got to get the miles in your legs, I suppose, early doors, and then trying to get strong through the core, and through your legs. Not that I've got a very strong core or legs, but you know the best ability is availability. So trying to get right off field, so you can spend the most time out in the park.
And so do you do like squats, deadlifts? Is that like leg work? Is that a lot of the stuff that you do when it comes to gym?
Yeah, I think we do like lots of coordination stuff. I can tell you my program if you want. I don't really know it off by heart. We do lots of step ups, and trap bar deadlifts, and those kind of things. I think just to get a solid foundation, and yeah, just to make sure that um, I think it's like prehab stuff. You know what I mean? You wouldn't really catch us doing much bench press or doing beach weights to try and look good, but we're trying to stay functional, and trying to stay strong, have a good base.
I might ask about your batting side, because I know even in Premier Cricket you average like, I think one season 42.33. So clearly, you're just as alongside with your bowling, you're taking your batting just as seriously. Do you have like a batting process that you stick to? Like do you do like visualization or anything, you say to yourself in between deliveries in order to ensure that you're fully focused, even before the game or in the lead up to the game and during the game, so that you can, watch the ball closely out of the bowler's hand?
No, I don't really. It's probably something that I need to tap into. The Chris Rogers has been into me about that for a while. I think, you know, most bowlers have a routine or have things that they do and say every ball, and it should be the same for batters. And then for people like me, even though I'm batting, down the order 8, 9, whatever it looks like, I probably need to get a bit better at that kind of stuff. As you know, tail end runs are vital to winning games, but no, it's not something that I'm conscious of, to be honest. I think I'm pretty good at switching off in between balls. I think that's important. Just off with the fairies in between balls, looking at the crowd or doing whatever. But for the period where the bowler's charging in, I think you just got to switch on and yeah, and do what you can. It's probably something that I do need to improve on my batting as a whole and get back to averaging 44.33 or whatever it was would be nice.
And are you trying to watch the seam as closely as possible out of the bowler's hand, and then are you trying to judge the length? Is that how you're approaching watching the ball?
Yeah, I think so. Like you're just trying to watch the ball, aren't you? And I know a lot of batters a lot better at watching the ball than me. They can tell you, oh, that was a scramble seam, that was a seam up. I think you do pick it up, and um, as you get in. But I don't know. I'm just trying to watch the ball and just hit it. I'm trying to make a clean strike on the ball. Probably not something that I'm conscious of as much. Whereas, in regards to bowling, I could tell you exactly what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to hold it and what I'm trying to get the ball to do. But when I'm facing it, I'm probably not quite as methodical.
And as well, what's interesting, like, the way you're talking about like keeping your batting as simple as possible. Essentially, like sometimes a lot of batsmen like overcomplicate things, and that can kind of be the downfall as well. So trying to just watch the ball, get bat onto ball, and at that speed as well. Like I'm sure you're obviously facing in the nets like 140 clicks, 150 clicks, and etc. Are you like, because people are wondering like at the ball coming at that pace, how you're watching it onto the bat as well? So you consciously watching the ball onto the bat, and going about that when it comes to your batting.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm just trying to hit the ball. Like, I remember facing Stark, the MCG, early last season, and yeah, it feels like the speed of light. You just think it's amazing, when the fight or flight kicks in or the instincts kick in, what you can actually do. I think, you're just trying to convince yourself to stay calm and to get yourself in a good position, and then what happens from there happens from there. Yeah, again, I'm probably the wrong person to ask in regards to the batting stuff. It's something I probably need to get a bit better at and have a bit more conscious thought around. But yeah, I don't even know, to be honest.
Okay, so it's interesting you brought up MCG, because I was actually at that game. I was in the crowd watching you bowl and batting as well, because I think you got some runs that game too. Because that first class match was a big turnout. Like it was a big talk. Like you have Steve Smith and etc. They were playing that game, but you're facing Mitch Stark and you're saying like you scored some runs against him, though you say you couldn't see it well. So like, how did you approach it? Like obviously you're doing something right then.
Yeah, well, like again, the first time you do anything is obviously relatively daunting. So I think it was probably the first time I've faced proper ball speed like that. I've faced Lance Morris a bit, but left arm, and obviously Starkey knows where it's going better than most. So it was, yeah, it's obviously daunting, but I think I'm just trying to, as I said, get myself in the best position possible and trust my instincts and trust that I'll see the ball and hit the ball. And yeah, I was fortunate that game to do it a few times.
And whilst we're on this game, from a bowling perspective, there was a lot of hype about the game prior to, because I think Sam Constance was in that was playing that game, Steve Smith, so some big names as well. So there was a big crowd out that way. And was there a lot of strategy and a lot of discussion in the lead up to that game, in terms of your bowling, how you're gonna bowl to Steve Smith and these other New South Wales players? Like, what was the situation like and the planning like in the lead up to that big game at the MCG in 2024-25 season?
I think again we obviously just went through it as normal. We put the same amount of time into Tasmania the week before, or I think it was the week before, as we did to New South Wales. We backed ourselves on home soil against New South Wales. Obviously, it's a good side, and as you said, there was a bit more hype around the game because the big boys were playing. But no, I think we just backed ourselves and went about it the same way we always do, and yeah, we ended up beating what was almost a test side, you could argue, with a side that was probably not at full strength. So it was interesting. We didn't put any more time into them than we did to Tasmania the week before. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think we all just backed ourselves and backed that in our conditions. Doesn't matter who's at the other end or who we're facing. We'll be good enough, and yeah, we were that day. Thank God.
And how was like, or how did it feel, albeit down leg side, by getting Steve Smith out, and then you followed up with a cracking delivery to Moises Henriques. So, what was your thinking at that time when that happened, and what was in terms of your planning as well in that moment? How did you feel like you executed that time?
Yeah, well, it's obviously a good notch on the belt. Smith, yeah, down the leg side. Probably not the way I drew it up, but you take it however you can get it, and yeah, I don't know. It's just probably something I'll look back on and be happy with. But I was more happy that we won that game. We celebrated hard after that win. It was a very good win for us and kick-started our season. Obviously, it didn't quite go how we wanted it to, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm pretty good at not really worrying who's at the other end. I'm just playing the game. If it's Steve Smith or if it's Brad Hope, I'm trying to get them both out just as much. So it's one of those games.
And circling back to the previous season, 2023-2024, that's when you were like started playing regularly for Victoria, and you bagged 40 wickets at an average of 17.25. And you also got a 10 wicket haul against South Australia. You took two fifers in that in the same game. And how did you feel like, being a regular in that team and then having such an outstanding season? And what did you feel like you did differently, or something that you worked? I know you already touched on a lot of stuff, but what do you find was like the key ingredient as to why you did so well that particular season?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to answer because I don't feel like I did anything different. I felt like I was a bit more aware of, I'd played a bit then, so I was a bit more aware of how people were going to play me and how I was going to get people out. And we've only got 6 states, so you play against the same people all the time. So if you had a bit of success against someone or a side doing A, B, C, you can roll that on again to next season. So I'd played probably 10 or so games by then, and I felt like I had a decent idea of how I'd go about it. And yeah, that season was a nice one for me. I think the pitches helped me, to be fair. The way the pitches were that year was obviously conducive to my type of bowling, or all seam bowling, I'd suggest. So yeah, the cards fell my way that season. It was good to cash in.
And as well in 2024-2025 season, you came second in the wicket taking charts. You got 38, took 38 wickets at 21.07 of bowling average. So in like you obviously followed up the momentum from 2023-2024 season into 24-25 season. In the off season, in that time before the 2024 and 25 season, was there anything that you really worked on in order to keep that momentum? Because I've sort of because I follow cricket pretty closely, like, that break can be a long time, and, cricketers do a lot of different things, either chill out or some work hard, and obviously everyone's different. What did you feel like you did that helped you to keep that momentum into the previous season, into the recent season that concluded?
Well, again, I think you don't really want to be a one-hit wonder. Um, you know, each year is going to start a fresh year. What I've done holds a little bit of weight, but this season coming again is a whole nother new season. If I get 0 wickets this season, I'm not going to be spoken about like I'm a decent player. You know what I mean? It was a new season. It was a new challenge. I had a good off season that year. Um, had all of April off, just relaxed, and then from May I was straight back into it with me and Mitch Perry and a few others. We were in there training every day, basically just ticking along, and it felt like we were fit coming into the season, and hit the ground running again. I feel like you never want to get to a place where you're content or you're comfortable. You know what I mean? You've always got to continue to strive to be better and to keep going well. And I almost did that, a couple wickets shy of the previous year, but it was good to roll that on. And I've got plans to do that again this year. I'd like to not have too much variance between my highest season of wickets and my lowest season of wickets. I think that's probably something I'd like to judge myself on, as opposed to a couple breakout years and then a couple years where you don't fire a shot. I'd like to always be contributing throughout the season.
And when it comes to throughout the season, and when you have little few days of rest days or time with the family or anything like that, are you the type to wind down in between games, or do you go out with mates, have fun, and travel? Like, what sort of stuff do you get up to when you do have a bit of time to yourself away from cricket?
Yeah, I think you said it there, fun. I like to have lots of fun. Play lots of golf. Probably don't take myself too seriously. Like I still, I feel like sometimes when you're playing all the time, you forget that you can still live, you can still go out, you can still run amok at times and have good fun. So play lots of golf, spend lots of time with your mates and with your family. But yeah, I feel like you're probably playing your best cricket, or you're giving yourself the best chance to play your best cricket when you're enjoying yourself and enjoying life and enjoying your teammates' company. So yeah, in my downtime, whether that was going out for a few drinks or playing golf or going to the races, whatever that was, I tried to make sure that I still did that and didn't sacrifice my social life or anything of the likes.
And as well, not I think a few months ago, you played in the county championship for Nottinghamshire, and in 4 rounds, you actually became the leading wicket taker with 21 wickets and an average of 17.9, and you took an five for 81 on debut and 5 for 19 in another match. I'm just curious, like you obviously continue that momentum from your Sheffield Shield season into county. Did you find a big adjustment bowling in England conditions? And was that your first time playing in England altogether?
Yeah, I played there when I was 15 or something, but this is my first time playing over there properly for points. Again, probably back to the belief thing. Like I believed that the work that I'd done over here and played well over here would hold weight over in England, and I'm glad it did. I certainly had lots of fun over there. They're a bit more cruisy than us. They have a bit more fun, drink a bit more, and party a bit more than we probably do over here. And I certainly did that. I went into a pretty familiar environment. I knew Joe Clark quite well from his time over here with the Stars and the Renegades. Peter Moores was the head coach, who's the coach of the Melbourne Stars as well. So it felt like a familiar place, a bit of a second home. And yeah, I was glad that I could go over there and contribute and repay the faith they gave me in signing me. But yeah, I think when you do something for the first time, as I said before, it's obviously a bit daunting and it's uncharted territory. But I felt like if I did what I could do over in Australia, it would hold weight over in England. Again, I had reasonable conditions in my favour with the start of the season. It's still pretty cloudy and a bit damp at that time of year, so that held weight for me. But yeah, I went over there, had a great time, and yeah, played some good cricket in the process.
They don't use the Duke's ball anymore, do they? Did you have to bowl the Kookaburra? Is it?
They use the Duke's ball for periods, and they use the Kookaburra for periods. So for the first 7 games, it was Duke's ball. So my stint over there was Duke's balls. Thank God, because the Kookaburra over there has, if you've been following along, hasn't gone probably to plan, and the wickets have been pretty flat, and the scores have been high with the Kookaburras. But with the Dukes, it was still relatively high scoring, but it felt like the games were progressing a lot more. There was a lot more results. So whilst I was over there, they played with the Duke, and it's certainly a good ball to play with.
Can you shed more light in terms of the difference, like bowling with the Kookaburra in Australia versus bowling with the Dukes in England? Like, what are the key differences, and what do you prefer if you have to make any adjustments? What sort of adjustments do you make with those different kind of balls you play with?
Well, I can show you right now. I've got some balls here, my 5 for balls. This is a Kookaburra, like super bright red, and then the Duke balls black, basically. So I feel like that was just from a viewing point of view. Felt like the Duke ball was felt like the Duke ball was a lot darker. It was a lot harder. The seam was probably a bit tighter and more pronounced. Just felt like the ball stayed a bit harder for longer and a bit better for longer, which isn't always the best. Like felt like you could always score or get scored against over there, and obviously the grounds are small and whatnot. But yeah, I felt like the Duke ball was a really nice ball. Obviously swung a bit more, and it was the first time kind of bowling with it, so there was a few challenges that I went through. But again, I spoke closely with Sids and Clint Mackay and a few people that had been over there and had success there, and just tried to be a bit of a sponge off them and go over there with a little bit of an idea of what it's going to look like. And yeah, I went over there and it kind of all just fell my way again. So no, it was good. It was a good experience, and hopefully when I go back again in the years to come, I can roll that on.
Is that possible to get a hold of the Duke's ball in Australia? It's not, is it? It's a bit harder to get hold of. Do you know if anyone that sells it? Sorry, it's just out of personal curiosity. Like,
Um, it's a good question. I got sent a packet of Duke's balls from Nottinghamshire to practice with. I don't think you can just buy them on the shelf at a Greg Chappell or something of the likes. So yeah, you probably got to import them in, I'd imagine. But um, yeah, it's certainly. I know that they have played a bit of Shield cricket with Duke's balls before. I think it was the West Indian Duke ball though, which is a little bit different to the English Duke ball. But it's certainly a good ball to bowl with, and I'd be interested to see how it went over here on our pitches. So I'm not sure how it would go, but I'd suggest it'd probably be bowler friendly.
yeah, I mean, people talk about currently as well, like Australian conditions being bowler friendly in first class cricket. What are your thoughts about that? Because I know on the Great Cricketer, Usman Khawaja talked about how it's harder to bat now in first class cricket as opposed to previously. And then people talk about batter averages going down. People have their own theories, like, oh, T20 cricket, they're not batting with technique or whatever. But then others are like, no, the conditions are tougher. Like, what are your thoughts about all of that?
I definitely think the wickets are um, a lot tougher to bat on, especially with the new ball, which has suited me. Thank God, it's been good. But yeah, I'm not really sure. Obviously, I've only played for 3 4 years, so I've probably come in right at a good time for the wickets being the way they are. But I don't know. There's probably a whole lot of elements that come into it. Definitely, the conditions are one thing, but maybe with a lot of the T20 cricket and playing different formats all the time, but maybe batters are a bit looser, playing a bit more shots. I'm not sure. Time will tell. But it'd be interesting to see what they do with the pitches again this year. Every year, it seems like they speak to us about the pitches getting flatter, and they want the battle between bat and ball to be even again. But in our season, only a 10-game season, you need to have results and you need to have result wickets. So yeah, I think there's always going to be a bit of both. Yeah, I'm unsure. It'll be interesting to see. I feel like whenever you play at the test venues, they've obviously got a bit more in them, just because there's a bit more. Um, well, what's the word? There's a bit more technology, I suppose, or there's a bit more help and a bit more stuff with the groundskeeping. Whereas on some of the outer grounds, it can get quite flat. If you look at New South Wales, Cricket Central seems to be quite flat whenever they play there, and then at the SCG, the game's usually over in 3 days, and the same can be said for us. Sometimes the junction can be quite flat, but then when we play at the G, it tends to be a result wicket.
And in regards to your bowling specifically, I can imagine as a bowler, like, you're having to do the same action again and again, and you're always not gonna feel the best, right? Like maybe you just feel like trash for whatever reason coming into bowl. I'm just curious what goes through your mind if you do happen to have those kind of days where you're like feeling like you're not running in as much as intense as you are. Maybe things that you can't really control, and if you have those situations and moments, how do you get around those issues in order to ensure that you can bowl at your best?
Yeah, I just try not to let it affect me. It obviously is going to affect you initially, but there's two ways you can look at it. You can just crack on with it and deal with the fact that some days you're going to feel in rhythm and some days you're not, and probably more often than not you're not going to feel in super rhythm, but you just crack on and try and make do for that given day. And then on the day that you are feeling in rhythm, you got to make sure you can cash in. I certainly, I've never got more than a fifer, and I always kick myself at that because I feel like maybe subconsciously I've always been content. Oh, once you get five, you just put your feet up, you're happy. You know what I mean? But there's days where I'd do anything for a wicket, and then there's days where you roll out and you feel like you can bowl anything and get a wicket. Caught down the leg side, or you bowl a wide half volley and they nick it, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I suppose you're never always going to feel great, but I just try not to let it affect me, and yeah, really try and cash in when I am feeling good and feeling fresh.
I know that you mentioned earlier about because only certain amount of teams that you do play against in first class, so you sort of build a familiarity and sort of use what that helped you last time. When it comes to bowling to certain batsmen that you have bowled to a few times. Um, are you actively trying to for example work on when it comes to actually bowling in the game? Setting up batsmen, like knowing their weaknesses potentially by having conversations with people prior to the game or analysts or whatever is there to help you discern what a batsman's weakness might be and sort of plan and set up that sort of thing during the game as it's unfolding. Like, for example, it could be knowing someone is slightly weak on the short ball, trying to set them up accordingly, or is it a rigid thing that you try to do from a strategy perspective, or is it also mixed with how you've talked about trying to maintain that consistent line length and trying to keep it simple as well. So I'm just curious, like how it comes to setting up certain batsmen. Is that something you actively always try to do, and how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, well, I think before every game we look at dismissals from, you can look at, obviously the great thing about footage nowadays is you can look at all the dismissals from all the previous innings of the batters you're playing against and see if you can see a recurring theme. And with most batters, there is a recurring theme, so you're trying to exploit that, but in your own way. You know what I mean? I'm never going to come in and bounce blokes out just because they're no good on the short ball. But if there's someone that's been kicking them recently, or someone that doesn't really know where their off stump is and has been nicking off, you kind of you're going that way. It gets quite precise. You might be trying to bowl fourth or off stump to a Bancroft and hit him on the pad, but you might be trying to bowl, fourth or fifth stump to a Hilton Cartwright because he's very good off his pads, but maybe nicks it a bit more. It's just two people I thought off the top of my head. There's obviously those little things you do with the analyst and the bowling coach, but as a general rule of thumb, I think a good ball that's on and around the top of off stump, as we've referenced, is good, is as good to a number 11 as it is to Virat Kohli.
I appreciate your time. I know we've spoken a lot about your career and your mindset and your approach as well. I'm going to ask a few more questions before we wrap up the show. Um, Circling back, I forgot to ask you about Nottinghamshire. Like there was, I think, 17-year-old player by the name Farhan Ahmed that you played alongside with. How was that like 17-year-old player playing in county championship? So that must have been an interesting experience.
Yeah, the wizard they call him. He's a gun. Obviously comes from a good family of cricket, with his brother playing quite a bit for England now and doing quite well in the championship stuff over there. No, he's a serious player, very skillful player, mature head on his shoulders, and yeah, at 17 to be doing what he's doing and to have played the amount of cricket that he has is crazy. I played with Sids, who never got a 10 for, and he'd got 800 first class wickets, I think, something ridiculous like that. And Farhan Ahmed got a 10 for in his second or third game, I think, for Nottinghamshire. So, yeah, it's interesting, it's a cool thing about playing county cricket and playing with different players. There's probably a lot of players that I'm going to have played with that are going to go on to bigger and better things, and I think he's one of them. He's a serious one for the future.
Is there any other player that, any young player up and coming that has really impressed you?
Yeah, well, there's two at Victoria that I can think of in Oliver Peake and Harry Dixon, who, if anyone's been watching cricket, probably knows that they're going to have a bright future. They look like serious players. I'm trying to think over in the UK. Obviously, I played with Jacob Bethel in the BBL. He's obviously so young and had quite a good stint for England already, so he's going to be a serious player. Obviously, Rooster, Jake Fraser McGurk's still young. Still think he's got a lot of good cricket ahead of him. There's lots of players. I feel like I'm starting to get a bit old now with a lot of these young guys coming through and playing well. But yeah, probably Dixon and Peake are the two, and obviously Farhan that we just spoke about. Those three, I think, are going to have a bright future. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other sides. I haven't played against that Vidler, but I'm not sure I'd be too keen to face him. He looks like he's bowling pretty sharp. There's a lot of talent coming through year on year, so I'm sure there'll be some names popping out of the hat very shortly.
Bit of a small world, but I think a few months ago, I actually drove down to Geelong because the cricket centre there was advertising that they have one-on-one sessions with Oliver Peake. So I'm like, I got to make the most of this. So I drove down, and yeah, I drove down. I enjoyed the one-on-one session so much that I did a second one, and I live all the way like in the north of Melbourne, so it took me like over like less than 2 hours to get to Geelong and train with Oliver Peake. But he's literally like the smartest 19 or 18-year-old kid I've ever seen. Like he's so mature, like it's pretty nuts. Like maybe put me to shame kind of. I'm like 28 years of age. I'm like, damn, this guy's more mature than me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So you can see why he's so good and he's doing well for Australia A as well. We got picks. So yeah,
yeah,
like
no,
with
he's a serious player. He's very mature. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think it's probably why I was, when you messaged me, I was keen to speak about it, because I think that's probably the one thing that's not spoken about lots, that probably separates a lot of the good players is the mental side of the game, or just how they think about it, how they go about the game. And he's one of those young boys that, yeah, you probably, his mental age is 30, it feels like, even though he's played, what has he played, two or three first class games. It's amazing.
Yeah, like I probably annoyed him because because he broke down about like the technical side to batting, the strategy side, and the mental side. So I was just like having because I play I'm like batsman for my team as well. So like I'm just trying to make sure I can learn a bit more to help with my game. And I just picked his brain so much. I was talking like I was asking him about like because I struggle a little bit on the short ball. So I was just telling him small changes I can do in order to help with that. And so he kind of said, like, because I had a front foot trigger, and he's like, try to stay still. Don't try to have a trigger. Because I think he assessed, like, from my sort of shot making that I don't really need a trigger because I've tried with the back and across. It doesn't really work for me and whatnot. And so I followed his advice, and I've suddenly got like a back foot game. So I've played like quite a few games since that one-on-one session I did with him. And so I've already like become a better player. And obviously with the strategy side, the mental side, I reckon is pretty good on my end. It's just more strategy, trying to convert like 50s to hundreds. And he gave me a lot of good advice. So yeah, I definitely have like I even like I videoed the session and I posted on our Instagram page, the Cerebral Cricketer page as well. So if anyone wants to check that out, they can have a look at sort of thing. And then he showed me a few stuff about power hitting and whatnot. So yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm just like had to slip it in because I haven't had a chance to talk about it on the podcast. But yeah, it's just kind of speaking to you like how mature he is, and only like 18 or 19. You know what I mean? And doing so well, has so much knowledge about the game. But yeah, so like I also wanted to like wrap up by like asking you two important questions. So like in terms of bowling to a particular batsman, who do you feel has been like the best bowler? The best batsman you've bowled to, and also who's the best bowler you've seen? From your experience being in domestic cricket.
The one that comes to mind that's not an obvious one is probably Renshaw. I think in all formats, serious player. Um, you know, doesn't do anything poorly and kind of doesn't play the same way all the time. The other one that's probably a bit more of an obvious answer now, he's going really well, but Jake Weatherald. Um, these guys that kind of feel like they can hurt you, but are also very solid in defence, and they'll come out and across, they'll stay back, they'll do a multitude of things. In my short stint in England, I bowled to a guy called Alex Lees that I felt was very challenging. Just big guy, kind of. Yeah, I don't know. I just struggled against him. Not that I've played much against him, but those kind of players are probably the three that aren't the obvious ones, like a Smith, or I played against some good Indian A players as well. But yeah, to be a bit left field, probably those three come to mind that I've always had challenges against. And then from a bowling point of view, obviously I'm biased to the Vics with Boland and Sids. They've been great for my personal development, and they're great teammates to play with. But the other one I think can't go past Michael Nessa. Obviously, another soft spot for him. Probably similar-ish bowlers. I'd like to, if I could have half the career that Nessa's had, I'd be pretty happy. He's every time you play against Ness, you're going to have to be on your game because he is going to be there and thereabouts. So I think he's one. I'm trying to think. Obviously, I could roll off Stark or Cummins or some of these guys, but yeah, to be a little bit left field, I think Nessa, he's probably the one that whenever I play against him, he gets me out, and a lot of our batters have nightmares.
Because you mentioned Peter Siddle again, it just reminded me because I'm not too familiar with the history behind the wobble ball, but from what I know and what I listen to other experts talk about, like Peter Siddle had a big, factor in kind of bringing it to Australia from England, especially at the time when it was being utilised in county cricket. I might be totally wrong on this, but it was just a podcast I listened to. But what's your have you working getting that knowledge of the wobble ball from someone like Peter Siddle? Like, what's your relationship with the wobble ball?
Yeah, this reminded me of two other players that I've forgot about who I think are very good: Jamie Porter and Sam Cook, two Essex boys that I've had a bit to do with, and Sid's played with them over there in the UK for Essex, and definitely would have learned a few things about the wobble stuff from them. I'm sure Sid's was probably a bit of a trailblazer in that regard. I think obviously felt like the English players were the first to kind of figure that out, or maybe Vernon Philander, it felt like he kind of had that figured out as well. But it's something now that I feel is almost a bit of a stock ball in cricket nowadays, especially over in the UK. I feel like swing is obviously predictable. It still holds a lot of weight, and I think it's an important ball. It's probably coming back into fashion now that the wobble ball or the wobble seam delivery is so prominent. But I feel like that's we don't know where it's going really when we kind of wobble it down there. You're just trying to put it in a nice area and let the ball do its work. I still don't really understand how it goes in or out, or if it hits the shiny side and skids on, or how it looks. But I feel like that's the new ball in cricket at the moment, and it's been very successful.
Is that something you had to actively learn to do, like bowl the wobble ball as you got into domestic cricket, or was that something you were already working on before that?
No, definitely when I started playing for Victoria, you started bowling it. I feel like you probably watched it on TV and you tried to bowl it and you thought you knew how to bowl it. But I vividly remember Scotty Boland and Travis Dean at Victoria abusing me for bowling these big wobble balls that were scuffing up the ball and making the ball soft. I'm now a bit more conscious of more of a tight wobble seam we kind of speak about, so it feels like it's still gripping the seam and not scuffing up the ball. But yeah, I feel like it's always evolving. A lot of us bowlers have chats. I certainly spoke to a lot of lads about it over in England. I spoke to Mohammed Abbas, who replaced me for Nottinghamshire, about it, and it's a ball that he's been using in Pakistan on the flat wickets as well. So yeah, I feel like it's a global thing now, and yeah, I don't know if it's going to evolve. There'll be something new shortly, I'm sure. But yeah, it's something that I think all bowlers are conscious of now, and are all trying to figure out what the perfect recipe is, whether it's a big, almost quarter seam ball, or a tight wobble, or a cross seamer, or whatever, however it looks. But yeah, it's certainly a prominent ball in cricket at the moment.
I know people talk about how the bowlers have to approach learning the wobble ball, how to bowl it. But what have you felt? What sort of adjustments had batsmen been doing for the wobble ball to negotiate the wobble ball?
Yeah, well, I think the batters are probably trying to own the pitch of the ball a bit more, because with swing, you can kind of see the way it's going and whatnot, and you can kind of adjust on the fly. But with the wobble seam stuff, you can't, if you're not in a good position, you can't adjust once the ball's pitched. You know what I mean? You don't have enough time. So I think batters are maybe trying to get out and across now and kind of own that the danger area, and then yeah, to be honest, you'd have to ask a batsman. I don't really know. I hope batsmen don't know how to conquer it. It'd be nice for me, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure. It definitely feels something that's put the shift into the bowler's favour a bit more in recent years. And as we spoke about, maybe that's another reason why the batting averages are going down, and the bowling averages are also going down, because of this new ball. I feel like it's probably only been in the game for 10 years, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm making it up, but it's something that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's been really fascinating, and it's from my perspective, it's been really good to see the change towards the game favoring bowlers more, because especially with T20 cricket and all that kind of stuff, everything's been favoring the batsmen, smaller grounds and this and that. But it's good to see the opposite kind of happening in especially in domestic cricket as well. So I know we've spoken a lot and taken a lot of your time, so I appreciate the conversation. It's been really insightful. And so I don't know if you had any sort of final thoughts you wanted to share before I wrap up the podcast.
Nah, thank you for having me. I think it's been good. It's been interesting to speak. Hopefully, everyone's got a bit out of it. I don't know. I feel like I've touched on a lot of things, but if there's one thing anyone can take from it, I think, as we spoke about, self-belief. Belief's important. If no one's going to believe for you, so that's probably my piece of advice for anyone listening. If you don't believe in yourself, or who does believe in you? You know what I mean? So something that I've been good at, and I'm going to have to still be good at. There's going to be times where I might believe in myself when I'm getting smacked everywhere. But yeah, that's probably how I'd wrap it up.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's obviously easier said than done, especially if someone as a batsman, gets out for small, very little scores and, trying to have that self belief. But I guess if you continue to have that self belief, irrespective of the results, that's the most important thing. It's always going to pay off eventually. So, yeah, appreciate all the insights, the conversation. It was really amazing. So thank you for your time. I'll give the wrap up of the podcast. So if anyone want to check out our previous podcast, we're on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcasts as well. We're on Instagram, TikTok. We make a lot of clips and highlights from the podcast itself. So from our special guest Fergus O'Neill, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing off. Thank you very much.